then you will remain on standby. You'll be reactive. You'll wait for inspiration, wait for opportunity, wait for the right moment. But the truth is, the right moment only comes to those who've already declared themselves ready. You don't need to scream, but you do need to be decisive. No beating around the bush, no sugarcoating, no self-deprecating humor. Say clearly what you are building, and let that statement become your compass, your boundary, your standard, your vow. Because once you've made a clear declaration of what you're pursuing, you'll start behaving like someone responsible for it. And that's when you no longer need motivation. You only need discipline because you know exactly what you're working for. If you want the world to listen to you one day, begin by daring to listen clearly to yourself today. And to do that, you must dare to declare. Dare to say, I want this, and I will do everything it takes to have it. When you dare to stand up for what you want will begin moving toward you, not because you prayed for it, but because you've sent out a clear signal. I have chosen and I am committed. Nothing is impossible unless your own mind has already rejected it before you even begin. It's not the outside world that stops you. It's not circumstances. It's not a lack of luck. The true obstacle has never been external. It has always been internal. When you say, I can't, you've closed the door to every possibility. When you believe that's not for me, you've prevented yourself from even stepping forward. And when you nod in agreement with the limits others have set, you've stripped yourself of the inherent power within. The key is not how talented you are, but whether your mind has refused the path ahead. I've seen people who had nearly nothing in their hands, no degree, no network, no foundation, yet they achieved things that those with more favorable conditions could only watch from a distance, because they didn't let their minds say no. They didn't allow fear to wedge itself between idea and action. They didn't let imperfection snuff out the first spark of desire. They didn't need everything to be clear from the start because they understood if they kept going, every door would eventually open. And indeed, the world stepped aside for a will that did not back down. Your mind is not a storage unit for outdated beliefs. It is the engine that generates new realities. When you truly believe that nothing is impossible, you begin to approach every challenge with a different state. You look for solutions instead of excuses. You move forward instead of waiting for perfection. You practice patience instead of judgment. And above all, you act as if what you want is already on its way, not because you're delusional, but because you refuse to let doubt take the wheel. This isn't a game of blind optimism. It's a conscious choice to adopt the right belief. Because you understand the operating laws of the subconscious, it executes whatever you accept as possible. If you've ever said, I don't know where to start, look again. That sentence is a disguised rejection. The truth is, you don't need to know everything. You just need not to slam the door shut. As long as you leave a crack open, light will find its way in. But most people sit in the dark, hands clutching a locked doorknob, murmuring, I'm not good enough. And they stay there year after year, not because they're helpless, but because they've disconnected themselves from possibility. Impossible is merely an illusion born when you allow your mind to repeat old limits. Maybe someone once told you that's not for someone like you, and you believed it. Maybe you failed once and decided it defined your true ability. Maybe you were rejected and you fused that pain with a belief, I'm not worthy. But all those things are interpretations, not truth. And you can choose differently if you're clear-minded enough to peel off those false labels from your mind. I once heard someone say, when you say I can't, you're speaking to your future in the voice of your past. And that's exactly right, because none of us truly knows how far we can go until we refuse to quit. No one is born knowing for sure they'll succeed, but some decide they won't give up just because others doubt them. They don't let their minds say impossible, even when the world around them repeats it like a chant. If there's one ability you need to cultivate every day, it is the ability to keep your mind from shutting down. Keep it open to new possibilities. Keep it flexible to new methods. Keep it quiet against the noise of judgment. And keep it strong when facing challenges you've never overcome before. This isn't an easy state to maintain, but if you practice it, you'll notice every door once labeled impossible begins to tremble, little by little. One thing I always do when I see something that feels beyond my current capacity is I don't let my mouth say I can't. I simply tell myself, not yet. But I'll find a way, and it is that not yet that keeps me alive through failures. It gives me space to try again. It doesn't seal off hope, but gives me a detour to return when I've regained energy. And every time I return, I come closer to what once seemed too much. You don't need to know everything, do everything perfectly, or feel completely ready, but you do need one thing. Don't reject it before you begin. Don't cross your own name off a dream just because you don't see the path yet. Don't tell yourself, I can't, just because you've never seen someone like you succeed. You weren't born to copy anyone. You were born to become yourself, a version capable of defying every prediction if you keep your mind open. When you face something difficult, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, am I unconsciously rejecting a possibility? Because sometimes it's not the hardship that defeats you, but the limiting belief that already crept in. And if you don't pause to observe that, you'll mistakenly think the world is against you, when in fact, you were the first to surrender. Nothing is impossible unless you declare it so. And if today you're still unsure, remember this: as long as some part of you still believes, still opens, still doesn't give up, then it is still possible. You don't need to see the entire path. You just need not to stop yourself from taking the first step. Because impossible is really just a door still waiting for someone brave enough to knock. And your mind is the key that decides whether it opens or not. Edison did not succeed because of genius, but because of a kind of belief that most people never have enough patience to understand. A belief not based on fleeting inspiration, not dependent on other support, and not requiring any evidence from the outside world. It was absolute belief in an outcome he had never seen, but was determined to create. And to reach that outcome, he failed more than 10,000 times. Not 100, not 1,000, but 10,000 trials and errors before finally giving birth to the artificial light that changed all of humanity. I want you to imagine this: if you failed 10 times, would you still keep going? If you were rejected 100 times, would you still have enough commitment to continue? But Edison, he didn't stop at the 100th or the 1,000th attempt. He kept going through all the times people called him absurd, laughed at him, or judged his life a waste. He persisted not because he was certain, but because he decided this: he would not believe in impossibility, even if the whole world said it couldn't be done. People often glorify the result, but overlook what created it: a mental state that did not waver. Edison didn't have the privilege of superior intellect. He wasn't inspired by a world that encouraged him. He was fired, ridiculed, and considered a child who couldn't learn anything. But what he had was an inner strength that most people never bother to cultivate: the ability to not give up, no matter what happens. You'll see this story everywhere, in every century. One person with a crazy idea, doubted by the world, yet ultimately igniting a revolution. And if you trace it back to the root, you won't find magic, but the discipline of the mind. Edison didn't merely believe he would succeed. He lived as if it was already certain. And because of that, he acted by a standard that ordinary people